What's up YouTube? I'm Animal, and today I want to share the deck that I use to get to Legend rank in Hearthstone. Now with the new standard rotation and the new expansion, I thought it would be fun to try Murloc Shaman. When I logged in, Scargill was my first legendary, so that really solidified my decision to play that deck. Now to give some background context, I hit Legend for the 19th time this month. Not saying that to flex, but I really just want to give some credibility as to, I guess, why I'm making this video. Now unfortunately, I played on the first day for 10 hours, and I thought I streamed it, but apparently my OBS wasn't working, and so all 10 hours of that footage is lost. I couldn't find it on my Twitch, I couldn't find it in my files, so yeah. But just know I really did play Murloc Shaman to get to Legend. It was a 10-hour grind, and we had a really high win rate. Alright, so this list is not standard to most of the other lists you may see on Twitter or on other websites such as Hearthstone Top Decks, HS Replay. I don't even know if Tempest Storm or Vicious Syndicate have anything out right now, but this is my own list that I used to get to Legend again. Right, so because I lost all my footage from rank 4 to Legend, I figure why not play a game just to showcase the deck itself. Just so those watching can watch the gameplay. Right now, usually these hunters are Mech Hunters, and so they will struggle from the first couple turns, so that's when we really want to snowball. So having a curve like this, like we really want our 1-drops and we want our Underbelly Angler for sure. It's really hard for a hunter to deal with a 2-mana 2/3 on turn 2 for them. I had coin, so I was able to play this out on my turn 1, and now I have 2 1-drops that I can essentially just refresh in my hand with this. So actually, I think I will just play this lackey. So oh my god, that's also insane. So because it summons a 2-cost card, you can also get a Bluegill Warrior and charge for 2. So just a lot of value for sure. Okay. Yeah, I really just want to play this 1-drop first. Make sure I get something good, and then I'll get this poisonous. We'll make a trade. So thankfully we kept our Underbelly Angler. It's really hard for this hunter to kind of come back from this board. Yeah, they have to like spend his turn 4 just clearing this alone. Wow, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna go for the most aggressive play right now. This is one that will set up a Bloodlust right now because we guarantee that, like, we already know that we have it in our hand. Next turn we can go Scargill and Cold Light Seer if we don't have enough damage, but we definitely should have enough damage. So he's just gonna clear those 2. We're representing 12 damage on board. So if it's explosive, we want to just attack right now. Misdirection. Okay, so we weren't going to kill him with Bloodlust anyway, and we also only had 3 targets. Yeah, so we would have had lethal, but it was just very unlikely with the secrets that hunters tend to run. Now for 6 mana, this board is almost unbeatable, and we just snowball with Bloodlust. He needs Hunter's Mark with this Unleashed Hounds. Alright. We hit 249 with this really easy game that took like, it really felt like 5 minutes only, so it's a really easy deck to climb with, especially when other people are experimenting. But yeah, definitely try this list out. I think it's really viable. Yeah. Now, Murloc Shaman as an archetype has always been really hard to play because one, other classes, other heroes would have really strong AoE or area of effect board clears, and basically one wave of Murlocs getting cleared is enough for us to lose all momentum. It's really hard to come back from an empty board when your opponent clears and they put out their own minions. We don't run anything like Lightning Bolt. We don't run Zap, we don't run Lightning Bolt here, we don't have any real spells or removal tools. We mainly just want to use our minions to clear. Now the thing is, in replacement of things like I don't even have it. So in replacement of some cards, I've seen Disguised Toast use Thunderhead and Lickum. I've seen Wizless also uses Lightning Bolt. We don't use that because basically Magic Carpet is efficient enough for us to not need it. Now, the combo with Magic Carpet, for those of you who don't know, I'll just hover over it. It says after you play a 1-cost minion, give it +1 attack and rush. Now we have 7 1-drops here, and basically the main card that really works well with Magic Carpet is the Sludge Slurper. This is a 1-mana 2/1 Murloc, add a Lackey to your hand, and it overloads for 1. So the overload doesn't really matter because the Lackey that you get is a 1-mana minion also. So anytime you play Magic Carpet, if you play it on curve, turn 3, and it sticks, then you have the threat of any of these 1-drops to use at your disposal. And any mana that you have floating afterwards, so say you play this on turn 5 and your opponent has a 3/3 taunt, imagine you're going against a rogue and you want to clear that, so you can Magic Carpet and you can play your Sludge Slurper. This gets the +1 attack from the carpet and it can rush into it. Then because you play this and you get a Lackey, you can also play the Lackey after. It's very useful, it's very efficient. I might even call it OP or broken in some way because just the efficiency is insane. Alright, so basically the core of this deck is made up of all of the 2-copy cards. Everything you see here that has 2 copies, in my opinion, is core to the whole deck. Some of these cards can be taken out so that you can put a 2nd copy in. Some people want a 2nd Grimskill, some people want a 2nd Soul of the Murloc, some people want a 2nd Murloc Tidehunter. You could go for a 2nd Stormchaser, but basically all of the 2-of cards are the ones that I felt were absolutely 100% core. I do not see anybody else running Magic Carpet in their list, and I think that it is a mistake to not have it. So basically a card like this synergizes absolutely well with Scargill. I didn't realize the combo worked until I actually played it and saw that my minions were getting +1 attack and rush when I was putting out the discounted Murlocs from this card. So when I had, like, there were plenty of games where I've had Magic Carpet, Scargill, and then I would have the Underbelly Angler, and I would just get a whole bunch of Murlocs for 1 cost, and they would have +1 attack and rush, which in those games, I was able to refresh my board and gain absolute board control and refresh my hand. So, like, the amount of value you get from this card, and this card all together is just absolutely insane. Sometimes it's even worth holding it in your hand if you can get a huge power play or a huge swing turn with all of that. Grimskull Oracle to me counts as a one-of because it's just a really weak card when you don't have enough Murlocs on board. It is only a 1 mana 1/1 with no real upside, and you can basically get it off an Underbelly Angler at any point of the game whenever you do start refreshing your hand with more Murlocs. The next one of is Murloc Tidehunter. This card is situationally good, but it's most of the time pretty weak, and you need other cards to support it. You really need your 1-drops to make this card better. So, like, when you do have a Murloc Tidecaller on turn 1, you get to buff it up twice by just playing simply this card. Or if you do play Murloc Tidehunter, then you have 2 targets for your Toxfin to gain poisonous on, which is absolutely insane when we're in a meta where Edwin Van Cleef or questing adventurers are going to run rampant through the ladder. If you have an opponent who's playing Warlock and they play some Twilight Drakes or Mountain Giants, or a priest who plays anything big for like silence, the silence priest archetype, having poisonous is really important. Solo the Murloc is a one-of in here because it can be absolutely amazing when you run it, but it could also be a completely dead card in your hand when you don't have a board. Your opponent clears your board, they gain tempo, and then you're stuck with a dead 2-minute card in your hand that, if you pair with your hero power, only gives you 1 real death rattle. It's just really hard to run off on more than, say, 2 or 3 minions without yeah. So Soul of the Murloc is a one-of also because it is just really hard to play at times. The upside that you get does not outweigh the downsides of having it be a dead card in your hand when you have like 2 or less minions on board. Sometimes you can miss your window of opportunity to play this card, and if you get too greedy, then you get punished really hard for it. It's just a card that I don't want 2 copies of in the deck or in my hand. Henchclan Hag. This was a wild card to me. I wasn't sure how good it would actually be. The Amalgam synergy can be amazing when you have all this Murloc synergy, but also just having a 4 mana 5/5 worth of stats spread across 3 targets is borderline good. It never felt overpowered, so I guess it's a good balance, but definitely there's enough synergy in this deck to really make it worth running. Also, one combo that I did want to try out more, if I did run 2 copies of this, was on turn 6 you can play Henchclan Hag and you can Soul the Murloc. So that's 3 targets that get Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Murloc. And just for 2 cards, that's a lot of value that you can get. It's a lot of good setup that you can have for Bloodlust. However, I do not believe that that's a better combo than just a pure Reign of Toads on its own. I say that because you need both cards, and on turn 6, you're looking more for a defensive play that also sets up a board that you can Bloodlust later on. A lot of the time you're going against a rogue right now who's playing a raiding party with the waggle pick, and they're threatening lethal with just Leroy on the board. And really, these 3 taunts are really, really good. It's reminiscent of Spreading Plague, where you just get a lot of health for just 1 card. Other tech cards, I put in Murloc Tastyfin. This used to be a 2-of card, but I realized that if I'm spending 4 mana for just a 3/2 Murloc, then I am losing quite a lot of tempo. This card can be really good on turn 5 when I have Scargill. So Scargill plus a Murloc Tastyfin doesn't feel that bad. Also, I feel like this has to be a core 1-of, not a 2-of, but it's core as a 1-of, because just drawing those 2 extra Murlocs makes all the difference when you have an Underbelly Angler in hand and you're just trying to outvalue your opponent for a huge swing turn. Also, this can be a really bad card, but at the same time it can also be a good setup card. So say on turn 4 you play Murloc Tastyfin and you're going against a warrior who threatens Brawl in their hand, or they threaten a Dynomatic, they threaten some kind of board clear or AoE effect. This Murloc Tastyfin can be a good counterplay to the warrior, because they don't want to give you 2 Murlocs. They don't want to draw you 2 cards out of your own deck that are specific to this card, or like tribal specific, and it can act as a counterplay to that warrior, because you're not really losing too much value, but you're also developing something on the board. So if they don't clear it, you still have 3 damage that you can continue pushing. The next 1-of card is Scargill. This is the legendary, and at first it didn't seem like a good card to me because it felt really hard to run. There were times where I would feel afraid to just put down a 4-mana 4/4 on turn 4, but essentially this card is one of the MVPs when you have an Underbelly Angler and, like I said earlier, a Magic Carpet. So the synergy that these cards have together make this whole deck feel so much stronger than I guess most people initially thought. It is not a meme deck. It is actually viable in my opinion, and I've gotten to top 300 legends so far with it. Okay, so my next 1-of is Storm Chaser. This is a 4-mana 3/4 battle cry. Draw a spell from your deck that costs 5 or more. I only run one of these because there are often times where I have to play this on turn 4 and it feels like a significant tempo loss. I feel like I'm losing pressure by simply playing this on turn 4 with almost no good follow-up afterwards. I really just want this as security for Bloodlust or Reign of Toads later on in the game. Say for example on turn 9 I have a Storm Chaser but I don't have Bloodlust, but I have drawn both Reign of Toads. I can guarantee on that turn 9 that I do get a Bloodlust. There are times where it can be a 50-50 that can make or break a game. I've only lost one or two of those, but those games were lost in ways that I was just heavily unfavored, so I didn't take that too seriously. This card can be really good in situations where you just really want some kind of pull from your deck, whether it's defensive or offensive. This card can be really clutch at times, but it can also just lose you the game due to the understat. Yeah. Moving on, the next card that I have as a one-of is Harrison Jones. This was a wild card for me. I wasn't sure if it was worth putting, but essentially with all the rogues and warriors out on the ladder, Harrison Jones just seems to be a solid fit. Shaman in general has lacked card draw for a while, aside from, say, cards like Manatide Totem. This card has lost so much value for Shaman in terms of just putting it in any mid-range or aggro deck, and so we need other ways of drawing cards. So that's why we have the Tasty Fin, that's why we have the Storm Chaser. But now Harrison Jones, at least early on in this expansion, while everyone's running Rogue or Warrior, this card has a lot more value on turn 5 and can really swing an entire game if you're playing against a Rogue or Warrior. Yeah, there's a lot of upside to having this in your deck in this meta right now, aside from going against something like Token Druid. Token Druid right now does beat this deck, I believe, because they do the same thing that this deck does, but faster, and it can have a sturdier board where we don't run anything like Lightning Storm, we don't have Volcano anymore because it rotated out. Soul of the Murloc is weaker than the Druid Soul of the Forest. We're getting 1/1s from our Death Rattle while they're getting 2/2s, and it really doesn't incentivize us to trade at all. So another one of copy is Swamp Queen Hagitha. This card is really strong. It is absolutely core to the deck. It will give you lethal in ways that you just otherwise cannot get. It is a tool that just helps you finish off a game that your opponent's just trying to survive from. Usually at this point of the game, you're setting up some kind of lava burst, some kind of lightning bolt, just any kind of deal damage card that you can get, even like a Frost Shock, just the extra damage that you can get. Or you can somehow get Earth Shock, or you can get Hex. You can Hex a taunt, you can Earth Shock a taunt, and somehow push for lethal. So there are times where you can get Hex or Earth Shock, and then you can pair that up with a Bloodlust, and you can just find lethal in ways that your opponent absolutely has no way of reacting to or playing around. And that's a really important card to have in your deck for just about any shaman archetype, not only Murloc Shamans, but also maybe like Control or Big Shaman. Now the last one of card that I have is Shudder Walk. Shudder Walk is just a really good anti-control kind of card. Basically you get to add a lackey, you get to give a friendly Murloc poisonous, you get to summon a 1/1 Murloc, you get to give any Murloc that you have on board +2 health, you can summon 2 amalgams, you can use the Storm Chaser one, you can destroy a weapon, and you can gain a 5/5 horror to your hand. I'm not sure if the horror actually learns the spells. I have not used Shudder Walk and Swamp Queen Hagitha on the same kind of rotation. I've only actually been able to use Shudder Walk maybe twice at most. So like this card absolutely is not important. This is actually one of the most non-core cards in the deck. Or I guess it's one of the biggest wild cards, I'll say. So you can definitely replace Shudder Walk with something else. I just like having it in there as insurance if I need to draw something, if I need to destroy a weapon, if I just want to create a board out of nowhere. Like I said, you can summon the amalgams, you can summon the 1/1 Murloc, and then you can buff it all up. That's if the cycle works out in that order, but essentially just playing a 6/6 and getting a few things on board where your opponent sometimes can't clear all of it. That'll give you like a Bloodlust turn on turn 10, and then you can just find lethal that way. So yeah, Shudder Walk is the least important card of this entire deck because usually you just want to kill your opponent by turn 5 with just a simple Bloodlust, or if you want to get them on like turn 7 where you have Bluegill Warrior and Bloodlust with some extra surprise lethal, then yeah, you could do that and your opponent would be gone before you even get a Shudder Walk off. So yeah, this is my Murloc Shaman. So yeah, there you have it. There's my Murloc Shaman. This is a really fun deck to play. I've had probably the most fun playing this this whole expansion, and it's probably the most fun deck I've really played in like half a year, really. This is a new archetype, really, because Murloc Shaman has been around, but it was never really viable. I think it is viable in the current meta right now, and before other people find different counters, this is like the perfect time to run a deck like this and just really surprise your opponent with all the burst, all the board control, and all the value that you get from the core cards. So yeah, I hope that this deck works out for many of you who want to try or are interested in playing this on ladder. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter, feel free to catch me on stream and just tell me your experience with the deck.